Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Learning Network. Kimberly Taylor here. So, today we're going to learn something new in our techie adventure. We are going to learn more about system configuration in your Windows 10 and 11 environment. So, if I were to actually go ahead and open up the system configuration setting, let me just stretch it out here somewhat. Won't stretch out too much, but let's put it right in the middle there. So let's go through a few of these menus here. So on the first tab, which is the General tab, you see we have a number of settings. Let's go through each one. Normal startup. So if you want to load all of your device drivers and services on a normal startup, you want to have this tab selected. If you want to go into diagnostic mode when you start your PC, or laptop, you want to go ahead and click the diagnostic startup menu, and it will say here, load the basic devices and services only. So this is used when you are doing some kind of troubleshooting, all right? Keep that in mind. Next, let's go ahead and click the selected startup dial button, and that will give you an option where you want to just load your system services and of course the basic startup items. So this is the bare minimum. This could also be used if you are troubleshooting a problematic computer. All right, so those are your options under the General tab from your system configuration settings. Now I'm going to leave mine in normal for now. Let's go over to the boot menu. Let's see what's in that particular tab. And your boot menu, it tells you, yes, I am using Windows 10 for my training PC. That's what I usually do, either 10 or 11. But basically, you see here it says Windows 10, and then it says the current operating system. That's what OS stands for. And it also lets us know that is the default operating system right now. Now, if we go further down, let's go over each set. We have an option called Advanced Options, set as default, and delete. As you see, those are grayed out. And then we have timeouts, 30 seconds. I don't really think you should be using that too much. You can also make all your boot settings permanent. I would not make them permanent because you never know what's going to happen in your system, and you don't want to lock yourself in an environment where you can't make any changes if you need to. So leave that alone. You don't want to make any boot settings permanent because if we need to troubleshoot, we need to go around and change some of these settings. So leave that as not chosen. So now let's go through some of the other options here. Some are highlighted, some aren't, or some are grayed out, I should say. So on the boot options, you see you do have an option to go into your safe boot mode. That's really important to know about because sometimes you want to boot the operating system in safe mode, which is just going to boot up the basic standard drivers that you need in order to get into your hard drive and to fix whatever problems you need to fix. Minimal, same option. Alternate shell, so if we're going to boot into our shell, you could do that as well. Some you might be booting into like a Linux environment, so maybe you could go into the Linux shells. But that's a whole different video. I'm not going to go too deeply into that. But you see the option is here, right? Go to save boot. You see the option is there if we were to choose the boot options. All right, now Active Directory repair. That's very important. So if you're logging into a server and you need to repair the local files that Active Directory might put on the PC, you could actually choose this option and go ahead and fungal around with some of the settings in your local Active Directory settings, not the server, but local. And of course, the last option is network. So if you want to boot directly into the network, you could choose that option as well. Now remember, this is in Windows 10, so Windows 11 may be a little different, but I just want to show you from legacy operating systems up into the current, so you just get an idea what's out there. As you know, Microsoft, they will change these settings at each new invention of a new operating system, or they'll move the settings around. But at least you know that those options are out there if you need to kind of explore where they are. All right, so we're going to take that safe boot off because I don't want to boot into safe mode on this laptop. I'm just showing you where things are located. Now, so we also have set as default. So if you want to have a no GUI boot, and what does GUI means? GUI means graphical user interface. So if we want to boot right into a shell, or what we used to call in the previous years or legacy years, a DOS shell, you would choose this option, no GUI boot. Now, why would you want to go into this mode? Well, if you are a developer and you want to troubleshoot and see what's going on with your operating system, sometimes you just want to plain standard DOS boot prompt or some kind of prompt so you can get in there and dig in and use your batch files, whatever developers use to troubleshoot the environment. So you don't want any graphical interface here. This is all graphical GUI, I should say. So we don't need that if we're troubleshooting sometimes. And so you want to just go straight to the shell itself, whatever shell it could be, whether it's PowerShell, DOS shell, whatever. That's what that is referring to. Boot log is important to know about, so you might want to leave that on because you always want to take a look at all of your log files all the time, at least once a week, so you can kind of find out what's happening on your operating system. If there are any strange configuration settings, any strange files, you always want to be aware of anything that occurs on your system, and you want to be able to find those log files most of all. So that's what boot log does. It gives you an option to see what's happening when you boot up your computer. All right. Base video. This is video related stuff. I'm not a video guru, so I won't even go too much into detail about this option. But like I said, I'm just showing you where it's located. And this is another one, OS boot information. Very important. You definitely want to know more about how your operating system is booting up. What is it doing? What files and services is it running when it boots up? Are there any weird files that are booting up on your system that shouldn't be there? So you definitely want to be able to review your OS boot information 100%. All right. And then lastly, delete. We're not going to touch any deletions at all, but there's the tab and it's grayed out. We're going to make sure it stays grayed out for now. We don't want to delete anything at all. All right, so that's it for your boot tab. Let's go over to services, a very important tab to be aware of. You click on the services tab. Now you see all of the things that are running on your system. Now see here where it says hide all Microsoft services. Don't hide anything until you know what exactly does that particular service accomplish. So what I would suggest you do is, well, let's go, before we go into all this, let's go over each setting. So this is the actual service that's running. This is the manufacturer who created that service, the vendor per se, and this is the status of that service. And then also, if you were happen to disable that service, it'll show you the date that you disabled the service. Now you can disable a service individually, or you could disable all services. Not recommended, because if you disable all your services, nothing will be running, and you probably won't be able to get your PC to boot up at all. So you don't want to go towards disabling everything. Let's just drag this down. I probably have a bunch of services running on this particular desktop. There's a ton of stuff running. So what you should do with great patience, just go through each of these services, and any strange looking service that you don't recognize or you don't know what that service does, what you want to have, if you have another computer close by, and just bring up your a Google page and Google this particular service, see what it does, see what application it's associated with. And that's a good way for you to troubleshoot problematic errors on your computer. So what you want to do is find out which vendor it comes from. If it doesn't have a vendor name, that's a red flag as well. And just kind of Google each particular service and see what that service does. Or if you don't want to Google, I should say research. I say Google because that's the main search engine out there. But whatever engine you like to use, just research that service and see how that service is working in your system. Okay, very, very important, especially with all this crazy security stuff going on right now. So you want to look at, let's say, let me see if I can find a service that doesn't look familiar to me. I'm not going to actually Google. So for instance, it says Bluetooth Audio Gateway Service. I know what that probably does. This one right here is a good one. AVCTP service. I have no idea what that is, but it's a Microsoft service supposedly, and it's running. So I would probably look this up and say, okay, what exactly does this service do for my computer? I've heard a bit like, and it actually even tells you that it's an encryption service. So that one's okay. Connected devices platform service. That's okay. I mean, even though it says Microsoft or whatever vendor, sometimes you still want to take a closer look and see, because these particular security folks that are hacking into people's systems, they have a very good way of just kind of making things look normal to you, but it really isn't normal. So you always just want to look a little closer. Okay, content protection by Intel. I don't know what that is, but I will definitely research that as well. Cryptographic service. That makes me feel okay. I know what that is. Declare configuration service. I have no idea what that is. So, just kind of, like I said, go through each service and discover what all these little services are doing on your system, embedded mode, and if they should even be there. Fax, for example. Why am I running fax? Well, I'm not actually running it because it says stopped. Very cool. Because I was like, what the heck I need that for? And since it's stopped, I'm just going to uncheck it. We don't need that, right? File history service, that's important. Font cache service, that's probably very important. Camera, just go through Google Chrome elevator service. All of the services that are running on your computer will show up here. And just go through them one by one and discover. All right. All right. So just want to show you that. I took a little extra time on that because, like I said, it's very important to be. Before I go into the next section, here we go. Here's an example. Run SWUSB. Now I know it's related to USB, but the manufacturer is unknown. So what I will do, I will research this run SWUSB service and find out exactly what's going on, because it is running on my system. Should it even be running? So that's what I mean. Find out something that looks kind of weird or not normal to you on your system, and just be sure of exactly what it is doing on your computer, so you can not have a lot of headaches later on. Shell hardware detection. All these guys look somewhat pretty much normal, but like I said, find the culprit. There's another one. S1TEP enhancer. That's probably Synaptics. That has to do with, I believe, my mouse pointer. So that one's fine. But just go through them all. Hyper-V. I'm not running these things anymore. I could probably check them, but it says stop. But I'll leave them checked for now, because if I want to go back to my virtual machine stuff, I'm gonna have to have that turned on. So I'll leave it. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you. And like I said, never hide your services, because if you hide your services, you can't discover where the problem is. So never hide anything. But you can enable or disable. You can disable them. Like if I want to disable, let's say, the storage service, I just highlight it and take off the check mark, and you probably take off the check mark and then click apply, and that service won't be running anymore. All right. So that's it for services. Now let's go with the startup. Now it says here, to manage your startup items, use startup section of Task Manager. So you open the Task Manager and all your startup stuff comes up. I'm not going to do it because I'll give you the opportunity to go ahead and discover on your own, but just kind of showing you where everything is. And of course, tools. You always want to know where your tools are. So this option here will actually tell you the name of the tool and the description. Very important. So you definitely want to know what each tool has a responsibility of doing. So we see here, like for example, system restore will restore your computer to an earlier state. That's very important if you have a crash or a virus or some weird thing going on, and you want to go back to the best well-known state before that infection occurred. You want to be able to do that. So this is a good tool to be aware of how to turn it on. This is the file that runs the restore state. All right. Remote assistance, registry editor, that's important as well. These are all the tools that are on this Windows 10 environment. And as you see, as I highlighted, it tells you the exe file that is associated with the tool name. All right, so I think that about does it for our system configuration exploration. Say that 3 times real fast. All right, so I just wanted to show you where it's located. Go ahead and explore, have fun, and most of all, don't change anything if you don't know what it does. Figure it out first and then make the change, because you will be making a call to someone and paying probably quite a bit of money for them to get your system back to normal. This is just for you to review so you can become more familiar with how your system is set up and what's running on your system. And what I would suggest you do, if you find something that doesn't look too kosher, just write it down on a piece of paper. And if you're not comfortable with changing things yourself, get someone who is tech savvy to help you out before you make a change. Do not make a change if you're not comfortable with making that change, or I hate to put it like this, if you do not know what you're doing. All right? All right, take care, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll be back again with some more tidbits on how to know what's happening on your Windows computer. Take care. Make sure you click that like button if you like what you learned so far.